What an intro. Welcome back to Anarchy in the Ukulele, me, KD, here, with this rather fetching Kala U bass. It's a bit of a beauty, but for full disclosure, I am going to say that Kala have sent us this U bass because we met up with the Kala team at Shriekfest. We said we're looking for a new bass for our band, and they very kindly sent us this one. However, we are under no obligation to review this favourably because of that. They don't know what I'm going to say in this review. I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm going to say in this review. Bongo Boy certainly doesn't know what I'm going to say in this review. It could be anything. You know, they won't see the video before it goes out. All that stuff that YouTubers normally say that, you know, is a bit boring, but, you know, hey ho. So this is a Kala solid body U bass. It is the SB, I am reading off the screen, the SB RDFS solid body 4-string fretted U bass from Kala. Sometimes I wish, like, I love the Rebel ukuleles that are just called like the creme brulee and the cheesecake and stuff like that. I like a good name. I know a lot of people don't, but name instruments rather than number. I mean, the Night Owl, the Revelator, that works, doesn't it? Talking to myself, I'm getting nothing back from Bongo Boy here. It's just it's giving me nothing. So I'm going to go through a few little bits on this bass, and I will give a little bit of a playing example. I'm not a bass player per se, but I can get my way around there. First off, let's go with what is a U bass. So there's a constant argument about, are these ukulele basses, are they not? I really don't give a stuff, because what does it matter what you call them? If you want to call it a ukulele bass, call it a ukulele bass. If you want to call it a mini bass, call it a mini bass. If you just want to call it a bass, because ultimately it's a bass irrespective of the size of the neck, surely it's a bass instrument, call it a bass. I really don't care, and neither should you. See what kind of mood I'm in today. What is this? It's a bass guitar, but it has a much shorter scale length than a normal bass guitar. Perhaps Bongo Boy can stick up on screen here a full-size bass next to this one so you can see the difference. Now, it is the same pitch though as a normal bass, and that's the interesting thing with these. And I think they've been a long time coming in development, this style of very small bass, because there's a lot to get right on it with the tension of the strings and the strings that are used to stop them being sort of really flabby and elastic bandy, because it is a smaller bass. They're certainly not flabby, and it plays just like a normal bass. If you're a bass player, you'll be perfectly at home on this. If you're not a bass player, and I think this is where these instruments are coming into their own a little bit, is if you're a ukulele player and you fancy having a go on bass, or, you know, you just, as a bit of a hobby, or you're playing in a band and they haven't got a bass player and you think, well, you know, maybe I could do that. These are great starter instruments. When you're playing a bass guitar, again, size different, your left hand is out here somewhere. So the coordination between your right hand, if you're right-handed and your picking hand here, and what's going on in your left hand is quite a long way away. It's quite hard to look. You end up kind of twisting over and you're playing like this, trying to see what's up there. It's so much easier to have it down here. And if you're a ukulele player, this is kind of where you're used to. If you're playing a tenor ukulele, you're not going to be far off kind of this sort of area. So I think it's important to know why you would play one of these before we go into whether we like this one and whether it's any good or not. So I think you'd play one if you're in a ukulele band and you want to kind of fit in and you like the idea of this ukulele bass because it's more ukulele size. So you see lots of these in ukulele bands, and we use it in our own band, and we use other smaller basses as well. We've occasionally used a full-size bass, but it kind of looks out of place when you're in a ukulele band now. You feel a bit weird and you feel like you don't fit in. You're not one of the not one of the crew. I think if you were a bass player and you're used to playing a full-size bass, it's a great travel bass. If you're going to rehearsal somewhere and you don't drive, for instance, and you're catching a tube or a train or a bus, this is very easily transportable compared to a big old bass to lug around with you. You could take this in a very small amp and you'd be fine getting on public transport. So I do know that there are bass players that use it for that purpose. The other purpose I think for it, which is where I would use it more, is it would allow me to have this next to my sofa at home, and I could either plug into a little headphone amp, which you can get nowadays, or you know, a little mini amp somewhere, and I can just sit and practice. don't know what I was playing there because it wasn't anything exciting. So that's the use cases that I can think of for the ukulele bass. I'm sure there's others out there, so stick them in the comments. Let's go through some specs and then I'll do a little bit of playing. So the body is an Ukulele body. Solid body, obviously. It is candy apple red gloss finish. This one does come in other finishes as well. Have a look on the Kala website to see what they do. They do a nice surf one. I believe at the Southern Ukulele store I saw one of these which is called the Romeo, because it's Romeo's signature bass in a really nice pink, which I was very jealous of because my full-size bass is in a very similar pink and I'd quite like one to match that. Anyway, if Carla's listening, make me a signature bass exactly the same as Romeo's. I'd love it. Romeo probably not so much. It has a maple neck, really nice maple neck. It's not lacquered, it's completely satin, which feels lovely. It's so smooth. There's no kind of gloss there that's getting your hand stuck. It has a laurel fingerboard. Beautiful. It's a fingerboard. A PPS nut. The nut width is 44.45 millimeters. Why do ukulele players obsess about nut width? I've never ever heard a guitar player talk about the nut width, but I've never heard a bass player talk about a nut width. I mean, if you're buying one of these, I'd say if you know what nut width you like, then kind of fine. If not, you need to try them. The same as any instrument. You know, you pick up guitar and you play what feels nice, or a bass, and you play and you think, oh, that feels nice, or it feels a bit tight. Oh, I don't really like that. You don't buy it. We just seem obsessed with nut widths. Anyway, it has a passive coil pickup. Now, this was a big thing for me because I find active pickups to be pretty unnecessary in basses. We can get loads of volume out of this, more than enough. And it's just a pain in the backside to have to put batteries in all the time, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. It has a top loaded saddle and bridge, means everything's on the top, there's no strings going through the body. All the hardware's black, even the tuners, which is nice. It gives it a certain look. I like that. I like that it's all styled in. I think if you had kind of black bits and then chrome tuners and stuff like that, it would look a bit weird. You get a padded gig bag included. If anyone's looking on the Southern Ukulele store, there's quite a major error on that. So maybe go and have a look and see if you can spot what the error is on their specification for this instrument. Alex might change it really quickly, but Alex, I'm pretty sure, wouldn't watch our reviews. So it's really nice. There's not a load more to say. You've got strap buttons on there as well. Like I say, you've got the jack plug down the bottom. There's no active pickup. Controls, you have two controls. One is the volume control, and the other is a tone control. You can just about hear that. I don't know if it's my hearing and years of abuse. I can never really hear too much on tone controls on basses. Even my big bass, which has, I think, four possibly tone controls for different pickups and things like that. I'll do a little bit of playing. All the favourites from our band. If you want to see us play the chain, have a look at our video on our channel. Try a different tone. I like that. You could hear the different tone there. I think hopefully it's coming across on the speakers that you're listening to it on. It's not a bass if you don't play. These are all things that the first time I ever picked up a bass, they're probably the first things I taught myself to play, and they stick with me. It's really nice. It feels like I'm playing a big bass, which I think is the best compliment you can give to any of these mini basses. Is you don't really want them to feel different. Now, the U basses with the rubber strings do feel different, and you have to use a completely different technique, and you have to learn how to play those basses. So I think if I was a complete beginner and wanted to pick one up, I would probably go for something like this. I think it's a bit easier to learn, and it will be, if you've ever played bass before, it will be exactly the same as playing a normal bass, whereas the rubber string U basses, you do have to put a bit of work into getting them to sound nice and not rattle and things like that. So Kala solid body U bass, what was it again, Sam? The SBRD FS Candy Apple Red. It's really, really nice. You've got a beautiful white pick guard. It sounds fantastic. It feels great to play. The intonation's absolutely perfect on it, and that can't always be said about these smaller style basses. That's where, for me, they tend to struggle a little bit, because of the size of the fingerboard and how much tension you have to get on the strings. Sometimes they struggle, particularly on these early frets. We've had basses where they're out by the second fret, and they can be almost a semitone out by the second fret. So the fact that the intonation's really good, and you've also got adjustments on the bridge here that if you know what you're doing, you can adjust those to change the intonation, is brilliant. So Kala Candy Apple Red U bass, I'm really happy with it. I think it's a beautiful looking instrument. I think it's a pleasure to play. I love the headstock, really like the shape of headstock, very modern bass style headstock. It comes with a padded gig bag, which we're going to put on screen now, and it retails currently at £289 in the UK, which I think for an instrument of this quality is an absolute bargain. And I feel for some reason the basses from lots of the manufacturers, but particularly Kala as well, are such good value for money. Not compared to their normal ukuleles, but when you look at the scale of price of ukuleles and what you get for the same price as one of these basses, I think you're getting a much better quality instrument of bass for £289 than in the majority of cases you're getting for a ukulele. And I don't think if you spent that £289 on one of these that you would be thinking, oh, I need to upgrade it. I think this is a kind of, if this is the size bass you want, that's what you're going to go for, and that's probably what you're going to keep. So thank you for watching. Please do join us again for more reviews, fun and shenanigans, and we will see you soon.